So, hello achievers, today we are in Chicago and I am with a new guest. I did an interview a few months ago, so you know him. He is Steve Olsher, and I will interview him on success, on how to become happy and how to succeed. That's right. So, hello Steve.
Hey, how are you? Welcome to Chicago.
Yes, and how are you too?
I am very good, thank you. All good.
Thank you very much to take time to answer my questions. I have a lot of questions to ask you.
Good.
I let you to introduce yourself.
I can do that. So I am a lifelong entrepreneur, started my own businesses literally from the time I was old enough to kind of pick up a rake, and move some leaves around, and started very early in the music business. So played drums for a lot of years and DJ'd for a lot of years.
Yes.
And then ended up opening up my own nightclub when I was 20 years old. So very young, and that worked out pretty good for a while, and then ended up moving on to the catalog business and the .coms and real estate and so on. But about 5 years ago, I had my personal wake-up call, right? The epiphany, or however you might call it, where something happens and you can go in one direction or in another direction, right?
Yes.
And so for me, I was with my my stepfather, who was very much a father to me and raised me since I was 10. And he was dying, he was sick on his deathbed, and I was holding his hand, and he couldn't talk anymore, but he communicated, I think, through the body, yeah. And I had a vision of my funeral, not of his funeral, but of my funeral, and I could hear the words being spoken graveside, and they were, "Here lies Steve Olsher. He dedicated his life to chasing the almighty dollar." And that's all that was said. And it hit me really hard, because he was saying, basically, this is your fate, this is your destiny, unless you move in a different direction. And so I really took that in deeply, and I didn't know what I wanted to do or what that was going to mean, but I knew I had to do something different. And so it was from that point that I started writing and started sharing things that had worked well for me in my life, the tips, tools, strategies, shortcuts that I thought might help other people. And that, again, I had no idea what that was going to become, but that became the book Journey to You, a step-by-step guide to becoming who you were born to be, which was named Self-Help Book of the Year after it was released. So, just great to be honored that way. But
it's a great book.
Thank you. And so 5 years ago, if you had asked me, would I be here today doing this work, I could have never said, yes, this is what I'd be doing. But over this time, I've become very clear that I have a unique gift, an inherent gift, an intuitive gift,
yes,
for helping people become very clear on what they are really born to do. And so I've now moved forward with this work, and it's all a matter of answering the question of what is your what? What
yes,
is the one thing your soul is really compelled to do? And then once you can answer that question, then everything else really begins to fall into place. And so since that time with my stepfather, I've concentrated on writing, concentrated on speaking, on teaching, on training, and that's put me to where I am now.
And it's amazing because you felt that it's the way you have to go. And did you have some fears, because you felt something inside, deeply inside yourself, but did you have some fear to take this direction?
Personal fears, outside perspective as well, all leading against, saying this is not something you should do, because when you think about what most people say when you want to completely change who you are or go in a different direction, the people that know you best, your friends, your family, they say, who are you to write a book? Who are you to try to teach people? What do you know about teaching people? You know about this, and this. You don't know about this, and that. So, right, so that's the question, right? Is, who are you to do such a thing? And even your own dialogue, what you say to yourself, it's a lot of, well, I don't know, maybe I can't do this because I haven't done it before. And
So
so,
you had some this kind of fears.
for sure, for sure.
It's
And
very interesting because a lot of people are believing that the successful people don't have any fears.
no, I mean, I think that when you become complacent, where you no longer have the nervous energy, where you no longer have the fear, where you no longer question whether or not this will work, I think then it becomes very difficult to stay fired up, to stay in the moment, to stay present, because then it becomes a matter of this. It's too comfortable, right? And so what an entrepreneur is always doing is trying to stay uncomfortable. And so when you are uncomfortable, you have fear. And if you don't have fear, then you have complacency. Does this make sense? Yeah. So I think fear is a natural byproduct of trying to do something new and trying to do something different.
It's a part of the process.
It's a process for sure, and you always need to be a little fearful of what can happen. Otherwise, if you have too much confidence, then you won't work as hard.
Maybe if you don't have fears, it's because you are not in the good place.
If you don't have fears, some can say that you're in a place that is where you know the outcome,
It's
and
comfortable.
so the question is, do you always want to be in a situation where you know the outcome? And if you don't take chances because you don't know what that outcome will be, then odds are good you will stay exactly as you are right now.
Cool. So the first step to overcome fear could be to accept them. That's right, to accept them like a part, like a process.
Yeah, and so there's a fine line between fear and excitement.
Yes.
And so I tend to look at that fear as a nervous energy, as an excitement, as a feeling that means I'm moving in the right direction.
Cool. So it indicates inside yourself that you are in the right way.
For me, yes. Yeah, whenever, I don't know if you have experienced this, but where...
I think so. I believe in you, in what you're saying. I
Yeah.
think the fear helps you to find your desire.
And like the butterflies,
Yes.
if you know, where the stomach is just kind of, a little unsettled, but it's excited, right? It's just you kind of get this feeling, and that to me means you're heading in the right direction.
Cool. Yes. I think it will help a lot of people to hear that.
Good.
In your book, you are dealing with four stages of learning. Can you explain what they are?
Sure.
And how we can use these four steps to improve ourselves?
So the four steps that you're referring to are part of what Dr. Thomas Gordon calls the 4 stages of learning.
Yes.
It's also known as his conscious competence learning stages model. So I didn't come up with this, but I adapted those teachings in a way that I think is relative for today, because it's older teaching. So I took that teaching and modified it for today. And so the 4 stages of learning, it's really interesting because it's so accurate. And as I found out about this and studied it, I thought, yeah, he really understands kind of what we go through. And the process is really interesting because it starts with what's called unconscious incompetence, which means that we don't even know that something is going on. So maybe you have a particular problem in your life, and maybe it's with love or money or success, or you don't, something, right? And you always get the same results, but you don't know why. And so this is unconscious incompetence, where you don't even know what's going on, but for some reason you just keep seeing these same results in your life. And so the key really then is to take those areas of your life and bring them towards what's known as conscious
Competence.
No, conscious incompetence,
incompetence.
right? Because conscious incompetence now means that you're aware that this is a problem.
It's a hard
But
step.
how do you fix it, right? So now you say, okay, well, I spend all of my money. Okay, so this is why I'm always broke. This is why I can't pay my rent, and I'm always worried about putting food on the table because I spend all my money. Okay, well, that's why. So now I know that that's what I'm doing, and so at least you are aware. Before, you didn't know that you were doing this.
Yes.
And now you present, instead of saying or something, now you know that you're doing this. So once you know, now you're in that conscious incompetence stage. And so the next stage is then to move what's called conscious competence, which means that you can avoid saying or whatever it might be during your presentation, using that as an example, but you still have to think about it. So you still are you're consciously
you're focusing on how to do the things.
Yes. So you're consciously aware of making sure that you don't do that, making sure that you don't say that, right? So you have to think about it. You get your desired results, but you have to think about the process.
Yes.
And so the ideal situation is to go to the final stage, which is what's known as unconscious competence, which is where you're, some people call it the zone, where everything just happens. And you don't think about it. It's just a natural part of who you are. And so, like, I'm a practitioner of the martial arts.
Yes, I like an athlete.
Yeah. And so when you're in the other stages, you have to think about every move. It's just, you have to physically and mentally exhaust your body to make things happen. Whereas when you reach the stage of unconscious competence, then it just happens.
You're doing these things.
You're just doing these things. It's like muscle memory, where your body just knows what to do and your mind just knows what to do. And so this is where you can appear potentially magical to the world.
When we are walking, few years ago, we didn't know how to walk, and now it's easy.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, that can go to any area of your life.
And so it's amazing. So how we can step up in each step. For example, when we are unconscious incompetence.
You have to, so one of the key things to do is to look for areas of your life where you're constantly
Don't have the results.
experiencing frustration.
Okay.
Right? Or you're constantly having to overexert, use too much energy. And so the idea is, where are you always sort of putting out fires? Where is it always like panic, 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 right? Just always something that is very difficult for you to do. And so that might be an area where you lack competence for whatever reason. Like if you have a love and then every 6 months, you're breaking up and something like this, then maybe there's something there. And so you have to explore and find out exactly what's going on in that area of your life. Or maybe you get jobs and then you get fired from your job, every year or something. And so maybe this is an area of your life where you have frustration and where you have difficulty. And so if that's the case, then this might be an area of your life where you're suffering in that state of unconscious incompetence. And so that next step is just to say, okay, this is an area of my life that I have to improve upon. This is something that I need to take a look at. And once you're able to do that, then you can move it potentially to the next stage, and then to the next stage, and then hopefully you master one area of your life. But ultimately, even if you can just master one area of your life, you can be compensated at levels that are far superior to your counterparts. The world rewards you when you achieve that state of unconscious competence, because so few people ever attain that level that, that's why they really stand above. So even if it's just one area of your life, whether maybe it's playing a musical instrument beautifully, or whether it's writing a book, or whether it's doing interviews, or whatever it might be, right? I mean, it's public speaking. It's just people applaud and compensate you very, very well when you achieve that final level. But most people on one area of their life can they do this.
So according to you, when we are looking at successful people, they have a lot of competencies. We are not born with these competencies. They aren't born with these competencies.
Well, see, I believe that we are born with those competencies. I believe that each of us is wired to excel in a very specific way, and that we, our DNA, right? Your DNA, her DNA, my DNA, we're all wired to excel in very different ways. And so it's there. It's simply a matter of you are tapping into that and recognizing that this is something that is there. Most people spend a lifetime denying what that is, both for themselves and for the rest of the world. Because the reality is that you have a gift to share. You have something that the world is waiting for you to share with them. But most people never do that.
So you are saying that we have the competence, so we have to unleash it, not to create it.
That's exactly right. We have to unleash it and not create it. That is a great way to put it. That's perfect. I love that. Yeah. I will use that.
You can.
Thank you.
Do you have sometimes bad moods?
Oh, always. I mean, there are people out there who come across as like always blowing sunshine, out of their butts. I mean, it's like all day long, sunshine, sunshine. And I mean, to me, that's not real. To me, we're human beings. I mean, every month. If you're a woman, you're going to have, something you go through every month that affects your moods. It's just the kind of way it is. But men are no different. I mean, we have something month in and month out. We may not have the same body situation going on, but there's something going on. Maybe it's the moon. Maybe it's, something that happens. I don't know. But every month, there's always something for every person, whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. And so reality is that if you come across people who are saying, oh, I'm always happy, and I'm just this, that, they're lying. I mean, it's full of shit. I mean, it's not real. And so we're going to have those moments. And so how do you deal with those moments? I mean, that's the question.
Yes.
And so from my perspective, one of the best ways that I have found to deal with those types of moods is through music. And so music has always been something that I go back to. Again, I started playing the drums very early. I DJ'd for a number of years. So music for me has always been a source of connecting to my soul and to connecting to my core, right? So when it gets really bad, and most of the time when we're in that place, it's usually when it's quiet. We get our mind going, and then our mind plays games with us and starts thinking, this won't work, or this is bad, or why am I doing this, or this, that, and it's always when it's silent. You can't do that when you're talking to somebody else. You can't do that when there's music playing. You can't do that when you're walking outside and enjoying the sunshine. It's usually when you're home or in your office alone and there's nothing else going on. So sometimes you just have to break through your environment and get out of your situation. And sometimes it's calling a friend and just saying, hey, I need to get together and talk. Or it's maybe you're a nature person and you need to get outside and walk by some water. Or maybe you're a music person and you need to listen to some good music.
Yes.
It depends on who you are, right? But ultimately, you have a trigger. You have something that connects.
You have to find
for
it.
you. Yeah, and then I got to tell you, I mean, from my perspective, exercise has always been a good way to get out, right, of your mind.
You mean physical exercise?
Physical exercise, yeah. So for me, martial arts is always really good.
And when you say that, you say to switch or in every day?
So routine.
Yes.
So from a routine standpoint, I mean, it's great to be able to exercise every day. I mean, that's something I can't do just because of my schedule. I try to do it, 3 or 4 times a week. But that doesn't always work either. So I need something that I can go to easily. And for me, if it's really bad, then it's always music.
How long do you wait to go to listen music or to play music?
Right, so that's where that whole conscious competence learning stages model comes in, which is when you're in that state of just conscious incompetence, and you've got all these bad thoughts going on, and you don't even realize that it's driving you on a consistent
So, yes, the
basis
first step
is awareness.
You don't listen the voice, maybe. You
Yeah.
are just only in the bad mood.
Yeah, right. And so the first step is then that awareness where, wow, I'm in a really bad place right now. I'm thinking really bad thoughts. I'm really unhappy, whatever it might be. It's that point where you just keep going down, 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 and then you realize, man, I'm in a bad place. So that's when it becomes that state of awareness. And so that's really key, is to just understand that that's what's going on. And so once you can just understand that you're in this really bad place, that's when you can make the shift. Problem is, most people get too far down and don't realize that they're on this downward slide. And then by the time they get to the bottom, they're really down on the bottom. Maybe they've done some really bad things along that way to hit the bottom. So the faster you can stop yourself on that slide, the easier it will be to come back up to the pinnacle.
Yes, and so maybe the key I'm listening when you are saying that is to not focus only on the short term, but in the long term. If I continue to do that, where I will be?
Potentially.
To realize I am decreasing.
Most people can't think that way. They don't understand how far down they can really go, because most of us have never reached as far down as we can go, right? So, we can continue to slide, and for a lot of people, it takes something really bad to happen to realize how far down you've gone. But that's very rare, right? So the idea is that for most of us, we can catch it. And the key is just to catch it as quickly as you possibly can, based on your own knowledge, based on your own abilities. But ultimately, it's difficult. It is difficult when you're in the middle of it. And that's where, no matter how bad you're feeling, if you can just get outside of your element, leave your house, go to a place of nature, go to do something that's out of where you are now, no matter how bad you're feeling, it will change your perspective.
It's cool advice, yes. If you stay in the place where you are not good, it's not helping you.
It will get worse.
Yes, thank you very much. I love your answer. In your book, there is something amazing. It is your vortex of vulnerability.
Yeah, very good.
And I would love to know what is it, and so especially I would love you explain to people what is it.
Yeah, so the vortex of vulnerability is based on the conscious competence learning stages model. So what it is it's designed to help you bring to the surface those areas of your life that may not be serving you well. And so the idea is that there are definitive things that happen in your life, and the key is, where do you consistently find those problem areas? And so what this particular exercise does is it helps you to identify where those areas of your life might be, so that you can learn to avoid those situations moving forward. So if you know that, like for me, for whatever reason, when one of my kids spills something, whatever it might be, a bottle of juice or a bowl of cereal or whatever it might be, for me, just lose it. It's just one of those things where it just triggers something in me, or I just, you just go crazy, right? And so the question is, how do you avoid some of that stuff in the future? And so if I see like my son's glass, like on the edge of the table, it's just simply a matter of taking the cup and moving it to the middle of the table. Something really small like that, something very subtle, can make big differences. And so it's really a matter of just identifying where in your life you have a tendency to lose it, and then trying to figure out solutions so that you can avoid those situations in the future. And then there's also the question of things that have happened to you in your life that may have had just what I call unequivocal life-altering ramifications. So maybe you were a victim of abuse as a child, or maybe you tried to get into a college and you couldn't get into the college, or maybe you've had someone that you loved and you wanted to be with, and then something happened, and so you chose never to love again, right? Something happened. And the question is, what happened in your life And more importantly, how did you internalize what happened so that the character traits that you display now are a reflection of those moments. And so if you can become clear on those life-altering moments and how that's affected you to this day, then you can begin thinking about how you can repair what it is that you've internalized from those moments. And then the third step is to understand what your disconnects are. And a disconnect is where the way that you see things is not the way that the rest of the world sees things. And so you might think, you're a happy, sweet, good guy, and yet you have no friends, and people don't call you on your birthday, and this sort of thing. So you have this one perspective of what you think is going on, but then reality says something else. And so if that's the case, then you just have to simply try to bring those disconnects to the surface and try to repair those disconnects so that if you think you are a good friend, then you act like a good friend. And if you think you're a good father, then you do things that would reflect what a good father would do, right? I mean, it's the question of
congruency.
Congruency, absolutely. And so, the vortex of vulnerability is really designed to kind of bring up to the surface some of the dirt. And then the vortex of invincibility, which is the next exercise.
And we can find these exercises in your book.
In the book, yeah. In the book, Journey to You. And then in my new book, What is Your What?
I think it will help a lot of people.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. And then, like I was saying,
maybe youth, because a lot of youth are wondering, what is my what?
Yeah, and I know Europe is having a lot of problems now with the economy and a lot of the unemployment. And so, in Greece, you see the kids, I mean, they're rioting, you got 50% unemployment, and, it's kind of scary what's going on in a lot of Europe, and that, of course, will move to Chicago and the United States as well at some point here. It's going to happen. It's just the way that it is. But if we can get people clear on what it is that they're really compelled to do, and then they pursue that, and they don't rely on others to create their life, but instead they become the creator, then it will take on a much different form. So yes, we have to get people clear on how to become a creator.
Cool. I just stopped you before. You were saying about the other principles, the other vortex of invisibility. What is it?
Yeah, so the vortex of invincibility is the second exercise where, whereas the vortex of vulnerability kind of shows you things in your life that aren't working well, and you want to kind of avoid those things moving forward, the vortex of invincibility is really everything that does work well. And so it's the areas of your life where you've had success, the relationships that work well for you. Basically, when you've put your mind to achieving a particular result and you've met with those expectations or exceeded those expectations. So the vortex of vulnerability is really all about sort of avoiding those areas of your life, and the vortex of invincibility is all about directing more of your life towards those activities. So I have an expression that I use which is called emotional nirvana, which is basically where you just kind of are and things are just congruent. And so it's almost as though time flies by, like maybe you love to build model trains or something, and so you go into your basement at 6 o'clock after dinner, and then by the time you turn around, it's midnight, it's 12 p.m., right, or 12 a.m. And so the question is, where in your life do you experience that emotional nirvana, where everything is just
perfect?
It just is, right? And life just couldn't be any better. And then
it's a flow.
It's a flow, right? It's a state of flow, exactly. And so if you can achieve that state of emotional nirvana on more of a consistent basis, then you can imagine how your life would feel differently. And so reality is that for most people, they spend 99% of their life in a state of where they're doing everything else that they feel they have to do and they don't want to do, and maybe 1% of their life is doing something that is very fulfilling for who they are and for what their soul craves. And so if you can switch that, you can imagine how much different your life would be.
And the life would be, and the life with others will be. Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
I have a question, and I would let Julie ask you something. Do you have some life lessons you want to share to youth?
Well,
You have children. So
I do, 9 and 6. So
Yes.
not quite probably, some of the people who will be watching this, but nevertheless, I can speak to that because I
Yeah,
talked to.
I will ask you the question differently. What's the message you would like to give to your children?
To my
Maybe
children, sure.
yes, to your children and the others.
Sure.
It's maybe the same message is important for you.
Yeah.
It could be fun. You will show them this video maybe in 10 years.
Okay. Yeah.
What
exactly.
could be the message you would like they see in 10 years?
Yeah, well, I would say the same thing to them, my children, as I would say to everyone else, which is, and if I may, I'll talk to the camera on this one, yeah?
Yes, you
it's okay. So, reality is that you were born to do something amazing. And one person absolutely has the power to change the world. And so you can look at people like, of course, Dr. Martin Luther King and Mother Teresa and Mahatma Gandhi and these wonderful examples of people who have done things on a global scale. And there's no reason at all why you can't have that same sort of impact. And it all begins with answering that key question of what is your what? What is that one thing that you're really compelled to do? And when you can figure out what that is and you focus your life on making that the reason for being, and that's when everything else absolutely falls into place. And so my wish for you is that you become very clear on what you love, and you become very clear on the unique gifts that you have, because once you understand how you're naturally wired to excel and you stop living in denial about what those things are and you stop worrying about what everyone else thinks, that's when you can leave an impact, not just on those who share this lifetime with you, but have impact on those of generations to come. And so that's what I wish for you. And if I'm talking to my children here, then that's certainly what I wish for my boys as well.
Cool. Thank you very much. It was powerful. So, Steve, we are dealing with success and happy. I'm fed up about that today. I have a question I love to ask. It is, I would like to help people to become unhappy, become average person, and become losers. Yes. Do you have some advices, some strategies to become losers?
Well, that's a great question.
Yes, very important.
It is a very important question. And so reality is that if you want to become a loser and you want to become unhappy,
I would
and you
like
want
to
to
try
become
before
average,
to share.
Yeah, try all you can, right? And so the good news is you don't have to try. I mean, that's easy. If you want to become a loser, you don't have to do anything.
Okay.
If you want to become very average and become very unhappy, all you have to do is do what most of your friends are doing. Do most of what you see in the world, and then you can live exactly that same kind of life, because, reality is that people don't want you to succeed. People don't want to encourage you to soar. Most people are just happy for you to sit there and be on the couch with them and get, exactly the same things out of life that you're getting. So reality is just surround yourself with, really stupid people. And that's the easiest thing you can do. Find the brokest people the people who have no money. Find the people who have no ambition, and find the people who hate everything. Make those your best friends, and you're going to be there in no time.
I love your answer, because finally I don't have to do a lot of things.
You don't have to do anything. That's
Yes,
the
it's
beauty
cool.
of it. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, if you do this really well, then you can have other people support you, because you're not capable of supporting yourself. So if you look miserable enough and you do enough things that are just, really bad, hell, you can go to jail and you can get 3 square meals a day. You can get a roof over your head. Reality is that it's not such a bad thing. What are the other choices? You got to go out, you got to work hard. You got to prove to others that, you have something to share. You have something that can add value to their lives. That's a lot of work.
Yes.
And so reality is there's great daytime television. Let's watch soap operas and let's collect checks from the government. And yeah, let's eat government cheese.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I will try it before to share.
Yes.
And I will send you news about that.
Please do. Keep me posted.
Thank you very much, Steve.
You're welcome.